Christmas dinner at my parents' house in suburban Denver should have been perfect. Mom's roast turkey. Dad's terrible jokes, my brother Jake, making small talk about his new promotion. But when Grandpa Walter slammed his fist on the dining table, everything shattered. "Why is a stranger controlling the multi-million-dollar company I left you?" he shouted at me. I froze fork halfway to my mouth. "What are you talking about? I don't even have a dollar to my name." The room went dead silent. My parents and Jake turned ghostly pale. Then we heard police sirens approaching our house. The turkey suddenly tasted like cardboard in my mouth. I stared at Grandpa Walter, whose weathered hands were still trembling from pounding the polished oak table. His steel-gray eyes burned with an intensity I hadn't seen since childhood, when he'd lecture me about the importance of hard work in his cluttered garage workshop. "Rick, you were supposed to inherit Henderson Industries when you turned 25. He said, his voice cracking with emotion. "That was 2 years ago." My stomach dropped. Henderson Industries. The name meant nothing to me, but the way my mother Susan suddenly became fascinated with her green bean casserole told me everything. My father David cleared his throat repeatedly, the sound echoing in our suddenly suffocating dining room. "Grandpa, I think you might be confused," I said gently, setting down my fork. "I work 3 part-time jobs just to afford my studio apartment. I eat ramen noodles 4 nights a week. If I had inherited some company, don't you think I'd know about it?" Walter's face flushed crimson. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick manila envelope, the edges worn from handling. "Henderson Industries. Precision tool manufacturing. I built it from nothing in 1978, working 16-hour days in a converted garage." My brother Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his expensive suit suddenly seeming out of place at our modest family gathering. His BMW keys clinked against his water glass as he fidgeted, the sound unnaturally loud in the tense atmosphere. "The company manufactures specialized instruments for aerospace and automotive industries." Walter continued, spreading legal documents across the table like playing cards. "When I wrote my will 15 years ago, I designated you as the primary beneficiary. Not your parents. Not Jake. You." I picked up one of the papers, scanning the legal jargon. My name appeared multiple times: Richard James Henderson. Heir apparent. Primary shareholder. The documents looked official enough, but none of this made sense. "Why would you leave me a company I know nothing about?" I asked, genuinely puzzled. "Because you have the hands," Walter said, his voice softening. "Remember when you were 12 helping me in the workshop? You could adjust those tiny instrument calibrations better than men who'd been doing it for decades. Your artistic eye, your steady fingers. I always knew you'd understand precision work." The room felt smaller somehow, the familiar Christmas decorations suddenly oppressive. Mom's ceramic angels seemed to mock me from the mantelpiece. The twinkling lights on our artificial tree cast strange shadows on the wall. "The family lawyer, Thomas Harrison, was supposed to contact you on your 25th birthday," Walter explained, his voice gaining strength. "That was June 15th, 2021. Did you hear from him?" I shook my head. "Never heard of him. But someone named Marcus Caldwell has been running Henderson Industries as president for the past 3 years," Walter said, pulling out another document. "He's listed as chief executive officer with full operational authority." The name hit me like ice water. I looked at Jake, whose face had gone ashen. "Marcus Caldwell. Why does that name sound familiar?" Jake's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "I might have mentioned him before. College friend." "College friend," I repeated slowly. "Your roommate at Colorado State." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Outside, the December wind rattled our windows, and the approaching sirens grew louder. Mom finally looked up from her plate, her brown eyes filled with something that looked suspiciously like guilt. "We thought you weren't ready," she whispered. "Ready for what?" Dad finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "The responsibility. Running a business. You were so focused on your art, and we thought—" "You thought what?" I demanded, standing up so quickly my chair scraped against the hardwood floor. We thought Marcus could manage things temporarily. Jake said, his words tumbling out in a rush. Until you got your life together. I stared at my brother, pieces of a horrible puzzle clicking into place. You introduced him to the family. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, Jake protested. He just needed something to put on his resume after graduation. His family cut him off because of some gambling debts. Walter's face had turned a dangerous shade of purple. A stranger has been running my life's work, while my grandson struggled to pay rent. The police sirens stopped directly outside our house. Through the frosted window, I could see red and blue lights, painting our snow-covered front yard in surreal colors. Mom's Christmas wreath bobbed against the front door as heavy footsteps approached. How much is this company worth? I asked quietly. Walter met my eyes. $12 million. Maybe more now, depending on how it's been managed. $12 million. I thought about my maxed-out credit cards, my second-hand clothes the nights I'd gone to bed hungry to save money for rent. I thought about the rejection letters from art galleries, the jobs I'd taken and lost, the dreams I'd slowly abandoned because survival took precedence over passion. Jake, I said, my voice deadly calm. How long have you known Marcus was running my company? Before he could answer, someone pounded on our front door. The sound echoed through the house like gunshots. The pounding intensified. Through the peephole, I glimpsed official badges and serious faces. Dad reluctantly opened the door, revealing two plainclothes officers, whose stern expressions immediately transformed our cozy Christmas dinner into something resembling an interrogation room. Detective Sarah Martinez, Denver Police, announced the shorter woman, her dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. We're looking for Marcus Caldwell. We have a federal warrant for his arrest. My blood turned cold. Federal warrant. I looked at Jake, whose face had gone from pale to green. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead, despite the December chill flowing through the open door. Marcus doesn't live here, Dad stammered, but Detective Martinez was already scanning the room, taking note of each face. We understand he has connections to this family, said her partner, Agent Frank Coleman, whose federal bureau credentials gleamed in the lamplight. We're investigating wire fraud and money laundering operations connected to Henderson Industries. The words hit me like physical blows. My company, my inheritance, connected to federal crimes. Jake, I said, my voice barely controlled. Tell me everything, right now. Jake's designer shirt was soaked with perspiration. He loosened his tie with shaking fingers, and I noticed his expensive watch for the first time. A Rolex. Where did a marketing coordinator afford a Rolex? Marcus needed help after college. Jake began, his voice cracking. He was brilliant with numbers, but he had no connections in Denver. I thought introducing him to the family would help both of you. How? I demanded. You were going through your rebellious phase, Mom interjected weakly. You dropped out of art school, you were angry with everyone, you refused to talk about your future. I remembered those dark months after leaving college. The fights with Dad about practical careers. The arguments with Mom about responsibility. The growing distance between myself and family expectations I couldn't seem to meet. Marcus presented himself as a temporary solution, Jake continued. He said he'd manage Henderson Industries until you were ready to take over. He showed us business plans, growth projections. Everything looked professional. Agent Coleman stepped forward. How long has Marcus Caldwell been managing company operations? 3 years, Grandpa Walter answered bitterly. 3 years while Rick worked himself to death at minimum wage jobs. Detective Martinez exchanged glances with her partner. Mr. Henderson, we need to inform you that Marcus Caldwell has been under federal investigation for operating a sophisticated embezzlement scheme. The room spun. I gripped the back of my chair for support. He's done this before, Agent Coleman explained. We've identified 6 other family-owned businesses across 3 states where Marcus gained control through similar circumstances. He targets companies with inheritance disputes, elderly owners with health issues, and families with internal conflicts. I looked at my parents with growing horror. You gave him control because you thought I was irresponsible. You were 23 and painting abstract art, Dad said defensively. You had no business experience, no management training. Marcus had an MBA from Colorado State. So you decided for me. Mom's voice broke. We thought we were protecting you from failure. Detective Martinez pulled out a tablet, swiping through financial documents. Mr. Caldwell has been systematically draining Henderson Industries while maintaining the appearance of normal operations. Our investigation shows quarterly payments to this family totaling over $300,000. The silence was deafening. Jake stared at his plate, like it might offer escape from the mounting evidence. Mom's Christmas smile had crumbled completely. Payments for what? I whispered. Agent Coleman's expression hardened. Silence money. Payments to ensure the rightful heir remained unaware of his inheritance. My legs gave out. I slumped into my chair, staring at the people I'd loved and trusted my entire life. You've been taking money to keep me away from my own company. It wasn't supposed to go on this long, Jake protested. Marcus said it would just be a year or two. How much? I asked. Detective Martinez consulted her tablet. David and Susan Henderson received $25,000 quarterly for 36 months. Total, $300,000. I felt physically sick. $300,000. More money than I'd earned in my entire adult life paid to my parents to keep me ignorant and struggling. Jake Henderson received $50,000 every 6 months, she continued. Plus, a company vehicle health insurance and consulting fees totaling approximately $400,000. The expensive suit, the Rolex, the BMW, the casual mention of his promotion. Jake had been living off my inheritance while watching me work multiple jobs to survive. There's more, Agent Coleman said grimly. Marcus Caldwell has been forging documents using Rick's identity. Legal papers filed with the state of Colorado list Rick Henderson as mentally incompetent, unable to manage business affairs due to substance abuse and psychological instability. The betrayal was suffocating. They hadn't just stolen my inheritance. They destroyed my reputation, my legal standing, my identity. Who signed those documents? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Detective Martinez scrolled through official forms. Family physician Dr. Richard Peterson provided psychological evaluations. Family attorney Thomas Harrison filed incompetency petitions. Both received significant payments from Henderson Industries consulting accounts. Even my doctor, even the family lawyer. The conspiracy reached deeper than I'd imagined. Grandpa Walter was crying now, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. I built that company for you, Rick. I wanted to give you something real, something lasting. Agent Coleman stepped closer to Jake. Mr. Henderson, we have surveillance footage of you meeting Marcus Caldwell monthly at various Denver locations. Bank records show you helped launder embezzled funds through art purchases using your brother's forged identity. Art purchases. They'd used my background, my passion as cover for financial crimes. Jake Henderson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. Detective Martinez announced, producing handcuffs that gleamed in the Christmas lights. As they read Jake his rights, my brother looked at me with desperate eyes. Rick, I never meant for it to go this far. Marcus said you'd never find out. He promised we'd make you rich too. The handcuffs clicked shut with horrible finality. Christmas dinner was over. Jake's departure in the back of a police cruiser left an eerie silence in our dining room. The Christmas tree lights continued their cheerful blinking, oblivious to the destruction of everything I'd believed about my family. Detective Martinez and Agent Coleman remained spreading documents across Mom's carefully arranged holiday table, like evidence in a criminal trial. Mr. Henderson, we need to show you the extent of this conspiracy, Agent Coleman said, opening a thick folder. Your family's involvement goes much deeper than monthly payments. I studied the bank statements he placed before me. David and Susan Henderson's accounts showed regular deposits far exceeding Dad's insurance office salary. Luxury purchases, vacation expenses, home improvements, the new granite countertops in their kitchen, Mom's recent Mercedes lease. The basement renovation that had seemed mysteriously expensive. You've been living off my stolen inheritance for 3 years. I said, my voice hollow. Mom finally looked at me, her mascara smudged from crying. We were scared, Rick. Scared you'd find out and hate us. So you took more money to keep lying. Detective Martinez produced surveillance photographs. Jake met Marcus Caldwell at Starbucks locations throughout Denver. They coordinated story details, shared information about your activities, discussed ways to keep you distracted with financial struggles. The pictures showed Jake and Marcus hunched over coffee cups, their body language suggesting intimate criminal partnership. In one image, Jake was laughing at something Marcus had said. They looked like friends enjoying casual conversation, not conspirators destroying my life. Marcus needed inside information, Agent Coleman explained. Your schedule, your financial situation, your emotional state. Jake provided detailed reports about your mental health, your relationships, your career struggles. The violation felt worse than theft. My own brother had been spying on me, documenting my failures, reporting my vulnerabilities to the man stealing my birthright. Here's what Marcus learned. Detective Martinez said, spreading out typed reports. Rick works Tuesday and Thursday nights at Garcia's restaurant washing dishes. Friday through Sunday at Henderson Sporting Goods, selling outdoor equipment. Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings at Sunrise Coffee opening shift. They knew everything. My humiliating schedule juggling 3 minimum wage jobs. My constant exhaustion. My growing despair about ever achieving financial stability. Marcus also knew Rick applied for small business loans to start an art gallery. Agent Coleman continued. All applications were rejected due to poor credit rating and lack of collateral. Jake provided copies of rejection letters. I remembered those devastating letters. Dreams crushed by bureaucratic language and impossible financial requirements. I'd shown them to Jake seeking emotional support from my older brother. Instead, he delivered them to my enemy as intelligence reports. Dr. Peterson's medical files were particularly useful. Detective Martinez said, producing thick manila folders. Marcus needed documentation of Rick's alleged mental health issues to justify the incompetency declarations. Dr. Peterson had been our family physician for 20 years. I'd trusted him with everything: my anxiety about career uncertainty, my depression during difficult periods, my occasional social drinking. Personal vulnerabilities, shared in confidence, then weaponized against me. These psychological evaluations describe Rick as unstable, prone to substance abuse, incapable of making sound financial decisions. Agent Coleman read from official documents. All fabricated. Dr. Peterson received $75,000 for providing false medical testimony. Dad spoke for the first time since Jake's arrest. We thought Marcus would just manage things quietly, until you got established. We didn't know about the legal documents. You didn't ask, I shot back. You took the money and didn't ask questions. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Marcus was so convincing. He showed us how much the company had grown under his management. He said you'd thank us someday. Agent Coleman opened another folder. Henderson Industries has indeed grown substantially. Current valuation exceeds $30 million. $30 million. The number was incomprehensible. While I'd been scraping together rent money, my stolen company had become worth more than small-town budgets. Marcus expanded operations beyond the original tool manufacturing, Detective Martinez explained. The company now produces precision instruments for aerospace defense contractors. It holds classified government contracts worth millions annually. I felt dizzy. My inherited business was involved in national defense work, high-level government contracts that required security clearances and federal oversight. Rick's identity has been used to obtain these security clearances, Agent Coleman continued. Marcus forged applications using Rick's personal information, educational background, and fabricated character references. So I could be prosecuted for security violations I didn't commit? It's possible, Detective Martinez admitted. As the legal owner of Henderson Industries, you bear responsibility for all company activities. Marcus was very careful to ensure all paperwork traces back to you. The trap was perfect. Marcus had stolen my inheritance, used my identity for criminal activities, and positioned me to take legal responsibility for his crimes. If exposed, I'd face federal prosecution while he disappeared with millions. There's something else, Agent Coleman said grimly. Marcus has been preparing for this moment. 3 days ago, he transferred $8 million to Swiss bank accounts, under aliases we're still identifying. He's gone. Flight records show Marcus Caldwell departed Denver International Airport on December 22nd, destination Geneva. He liquidated major company assets before leaving. Christmas Eve. While I'd been wrapping gifts I couldn't afford, Marcus was stealing millions and fleeing the country. But we have advantages Marcus doesn't realize, Detective Martinez said with the first smile I'd seen from her. His arrogance created vulnerabilities we can exploit. What do you mean? Agent Coleman leaned forward. Marcus maintained legal documentation, showing you as company owner, because it provided cover for his activities. But those same documents prove your rightful ownership. Every transaction he's made requires your authorization. So, Swiss authorities have frozen the accounts pending authentication from the true company owner. Marcus can't access the money without your legal signature. For the first time since Christmas dinner began, I felt something resembling hope. Marcus had created elaborate systems to steal from me, but his need for legal cover meant I still had power to stop him. What happens now? I asked. Detective Martinez gathered the documents. You fight back. Agent Coleman's phone buzzed with an urgent message. He read the screen, his expression darkening. Marcus is in Geneva, but he's not giving up. We just intercepted communications suggesting he's planning something catastrophic for Henderson Industries. I spent the next hour studying financial documents that revealed the scope of Marcus's deception. Henderson Industries had become something far beyond Grandpa Walter's original vision. The company now operated from a massive complex I'd never seen, employing over 400 people across 3 states. This is your grandfather's original manufacturing plant, Detective Martinez said, showing me aerial photographs on her tablet. The building I remembered from childhood visits had been transformed into an industrial campus spanning several city blocks. Marcus expanded operations using profits from government contracts. The images showed gleaming warehouses, administrative buildings, employee parking lots filled with cars, a thriving business empire built on stolen foundations. Henderson Industries supplies precision instruments to Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman. Agent Coleman explained. The company manufactures guidance systems for military aircraft satellite components and specialized tools for space exploration programs. My grandfather's small tool-making operation had become a defense contractor working on classified national projects. The responsibility was staggering. Marcus used your identity to obtain security clearances for these government contracts. Detective Martinez continued. You're listed as company president with top-secret authorization for projects you've never heard of. I stared at clearance documents bearing my forged signature. According to official records, I'd undergone extensive background investigations, psychological evaluations, and loyalty assessments. Marcus had created a completely fictional version of my professional history. What happens when the government discovers the truth? I asked. Depends on how we handle this, Agent Coleman said carefully. If Marcus successfully frames you for his crimes, you could face espionage charges, federal prosecution, decades in prison. The weight of accumulated deceptions was crushing. Marcus hadn't just stolen money. He'd positioned me to take responsibility for potential treason. But Marcus made crucial mistakes. Detective Martinez said, producing another set of documents. His art fraud scheme left digital fingerprints we can trace. She showed me transaction records for expensive paintings purchased through Henderson Industries. Van Gogh, sketches, Picasso lithographs, contemporary sculptures worth hundreds of thousands each. Every purchase was justified as investment diversification for company funds. Marcus used your artistic background to legitimize these acquisitions. Agent Coleman explained. Board meeting minutes show Rick Henderson recommending specific pieces based on aesthetic merit and investment potential. The paintings were sold months later at inflated prices to shell companies Marcus controlled. Each transaction laundered embezzled profits while artificially increasing artwork values. Your reputation as an artist gave these purchases credibility, Detective Martinez said. Gallery owners, auction houses, art dealers, all believed they were dealing with a legitimate collector backed by a successful aerospace company. Marcus had perverted my passion for art, turning my creative interests into tools for financial crime. Every piece I'd ever loved was now associated with fraud and manipulation. Agent Coleman's phone rang. He answered grimly, speaking in urgent whispers. When he hung up, his expression was grim. Marcus just contacted the FBI from Geneva, he announced. He's offering to cooperate with our investigation of the international money laundering network. What does that mean? He wants immunity in exchange for information about Russian oligarchs and Middle Eastern arms dealers who used Henderson Industries to purchase military equipment for illegal exports. The room spun. My inherited company hadn't just been manufacturing defense components. It had been selling them to international criminals. Marcus claims he was forced to cooperate with these criminal organizations, Detective Martinez said sarcastically. He's positioning himself as a victim rather than the architect. Will the FBI accept his deal? Agent Coleman's jaw tightened. They're considering it. Marcus has evidence about weapons trafficking worth hundreds of millions. From the FBI's perspective, catching international arms dealers takes priority over financial fraud. I felt physically sick. Marcus might escape prosecution while I remained legally responsible for his crimes. The man who destroyed my life could walk free while I faced decades in prison. There's something else, Detective Martinez said quietly. Marcus specifically mentioned your family in his immunity proposal. What about my family? He claims David Susan and Jake Henderson were knowing participants in the money laundering operation. He's prepared to testify that they actively helped him commit federal crimes. My parents and Jake faced prosecution as accessories to international weapons trafficking. The family dinner that had started with Christmas turkey was ending with potential terrorism charges. Marcus is offering to protect your family in exchange for your cooperation, Agent Coleman explained. He wants you to publicly endorse his version of events. His version? That you were a willing participant who became uncomfortable when the operation expanded beyond simple financial fraud. He's prepared to portray you as a naive artist who got in over his head. Marcus was still controlling the narrative, still manipulating everyone around him. Even from Switzerland, he was orchestrating events to his advantage. What if I refuse? Detective Martinez met my eyes. Then he destroys Henderson Industries, frames your family for terrorism, and disappears with $8 million. My phone rang. The caller ID showed an international number, Geneva, Switzerland. Answer it, Agent Coleman said. We're recording everything. I picked up with trembling fingers. Hello. Rick, my old friend. Marcus's voice was smooth, confident, completely unrepentant. I hear you've finally learned the truth about your inheritance. Congratulations. You destroyed my life. I saved your life. Marcus laughed. Do you think a struggling artist could have managed government defense contracts? I turned your grandfather's little workshop into an international corporation. By stealing from me. By building something greater than you ever imagined. Henderson Industries is worth $30 million because of my vision, my management, my connections. The arrogance was breathtaking. Marcus genuinely believed he deserved credit for success built on theft and fraud. Here's my final offer, he continued. Split the Swiss account funds 50-50, $15 million each. I disappear forever, you keep the company, everyone wins. What about my family? Your family made their choices. They took my money for 3 years. If you refuse my generous offer, I'll ensure they face federal terrorism charges. Agent Coleman was recording everything, but Marcus's threats felt very real. He'd manipulated federal investigations before. He had evidence connections and 8 million reasons to destroy anyone who opposed him. "You have 24 hours to decide," Marcus said. "Accept my offer or watch everything you love burn." The line went dead. Christmas dinner had become a federal case with international implications. And somehow, I was the only one who could stop Marcus from winning. The FBI's Denver field office at 3 in the morning felt like a war room. Agent Coleman had assembled a team of specialists, cybercrimes investigators, international financial analysts, and federal prosecutors who looked like they'd been working for days without sleep. "Marcus Caldwell isn't just a small-time embezzler," explained Special Agent Catherine Webb, the lead investigator on international money laundering. "He's been operating sophisticated financial crimes for over 5 years, moving money for Russian oligarchs, Middle Eastern arms dealers, and Chinese military contractors." I sat across from a conference table covered with charts, photographs, and documents in multiple languages. Henderson Industries wasn't just my stolen inheritance. It had become a nexus for international weapons trafficking. "Your company manufactured specialized targeting systems for military aircraft," Agent Webb continued. "Marcus sold these components to criminal organizations, who modified them for illegal arms exports." The scope of criminality was overwhelming. While I'd been washing dishes and serving coffee, my identity had been used to commit crimes against national security. "But here's what Marcus doesn't realize," Agent Coleman said, spreading out new documents. "He needed legitimate business credentials to operate at this level. Every contract, every transaction, every government authorization traces back to you as the legal company owner." "How does that help me?" "Because Swiss authorities won't release frozen funds without authentication from Henderson Industries' legitimate president. Marcus can't access the money without your cooperation." Special Agent Webb opened a secure laptop. "We've been coordinating with international law enforcement for months. Marcus is trapped in Geneva, while Swiss prosecutors review evidence of financial crimes." The screen showed surveillance footage of Marcus in expensive Geneva hotels, restaurants, and shopping districts. He looked relaxed, confident, completely unaware that his Swiss accounts were frozen. "Marcus believes his FBI cooperation deal protects him," Agent Coleman explained. "But federal prosecutors haven't formally accepted his immunity offer. We're still building cases against the international criminals he claims to have information about." "What about my family?" Agent Webb's expression softened slightly. "Jake's cooperation has been valuable. He provided detailed records of Marcus's meetings, financial transactions, and criminal contacts. David and Susan will face financial penalties but probably avoid prison time." Relief flooded through me. My family had betrayed me, but they didn't deserve terrorism charges for Marcus's manipulation. "However," Agent Coleman said grimly, "Marcus has contingency plans if his immunity deal falls through. Our intelligence suggests he's prepared to destroy Henderson Industries rather than let you reclaim control." "How?" Special Agent Webb pulled up computer files showing Henderson Industries government contracts. Marcus arranged for the company's largest defense contract to be terminated effective December 28th. Without that income, the company will declare bankruptcy within 60 days. 400 employees would lose jobs. Decades of Grandpa Walter's work would be destroyed. Marcus's final revenge was ensuring that if he couldn't keep Henderson Industries, no one could. "There's more," Agent Coleman said. "Marcus filed legal challenges to your ownership claims. He's arguing that the inheritance was invalid because Walter Henderson was mentally incompetent when he designated you as heir." The attack on my grandfather's memory was the final insult. Marcus was claiming Walter's dementia invalidated his will, making the inheritance legally questionable. "Can he win?" "Possibly," Special Agent Webb admitted. "Walter's medical records show early-stage dementia. Marcus's lawyers are arguing he lacked capacity to make complex legal decisions." I thought about Grandpa Walter in the hospital, his heart attack triggered by discovering Marcus's crimes. The stress of fighting for his legacy was literally killing him. "I'm going to Geneva," I announced. Agent Coleman shook his head. Too dangerous. Marcus has connections to violent criminal organizations. I don't care. This ends now. Special Agent Webb studied my expression. Actually, that might work. Swiss authorities need Rick's formal testimony to proceed with asset forfeiture. If he travels there officially, we can coordinate with Interpol for protection. The plan took shape quickly. I would fly to Geneva with federal escorts, provide testimony to Swiss prosecutors, and formally claim the frozen accounts. Marcus would be arrested before he could destroy Henderson Industries. There's significant risk, Agent Coleman warned. Marcus will know you're coming. He might attempt to eliminate you before you can testify. Let him try. 24 hours later, I was on a federal transport flight to Geneva, surrounded by FBI agents and international legal experts. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had a purpose beyond mere survival. The Swiss Alps looked beautiful from the airplane window, snow-covered peaks gleaming in winter sunlight. Somewhere below, Marcus was waiting for me to accept his 50-50 deal. Instead, I was coming to take back everything he'd stolen. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown international number. Last chance, Rick. Accept my offer or watch your family burn. I showed the message to Agent Coleman, who forwarded it to Swiss authorities. Marcus's threats were being documented as evidence for his prosecution. Whatever happens next, I told myself as we descended toward Geneva International Airport, I'm done running from confrontation. The fight for my inheritance was about to begin. Geneva's federal courthouse was the imposing stone building that seemed designed to intimidate anyone who entered. Swiss prosecutors had assembled an impressive array of evidence against Marcus, but they needed my formal testimony to proceed with asset seizure. Mr. Henderson, said Prosecutor Elizabeth Miller, a precise woman whose English carried only the slightest accent. Marcus Caldwell claims you were a willing participant in financial crimes. He insists the Swiss accounts contain legitimately earned profits you agreed to share. I sat across from her polished conference table, surrounded by FBI agents and international legal experts. Through tall windows, Lake Geneva stretched toward snow-covered mountains that seemed impossibly distant from my Denver upbringing. That's completely false, I said firmly. I never authorized any international transfers. I didn't even know Henderson Industries existed until 3 days ago. Prosecutor Miller studied documents spread before her. Mr. Caldwell has provided extensive documentation suggesting otherwise. Bank signature cards, email communications, recorded phone conversations, all appearing to show your involvement. Agent Coleman leaned forward. All forged or fabricated. We have handwriting analysis proving the signatures aren't Rick's. Nevertheless, Prosecutor Miller continued, Swiss banking law requires us to verify the true ownership of these accounts before releasing frozen funds. Mr. Caldwell's legal team argues he has legitimate claim to money he moved and invested. Marcus's Swiss lawyers had filed injunctions claiming he'd earned the money through his management of Henderson Industries. According to their argument, he deserved compensation for transforming a small manufacturing company into an international corporation. Has Marcus offered any cooperation with your investigation? I asked. Prosecutor Miller exchanged glances with her assistant. Mr. Caldwell has provided information about Russian oligarchs who used Henderson Industries to launder money from arms sales. His testimony could be valuable for prosecuting larger criminal networks. The same pattern Marcus had used with American federal agents. Offer cooperation with bigger investigations to escape responsibility for his own crimes. But we've discovered something Mr. Caldwell doesn't realize. She continued with a slight smile. Swiss banks maintain detailed records of account activity. Every transaction, every communication, every access attempt. She opened a thick file folder. Mr. Caldwell has been accessing these accounts regularly for 2 years. Our records show consistent patterns that contradict his claimed timeline. What kind of patterns? Luxury purchases, expensive hotels payments to exclusive Geneva social clubs. Mr. Caldwell has been living extremely well on money he claims to have just recently moved to Switzerland. Marcus had been caught in his own lie. He'd been using the Swiss accounts long before his supposed emergency escape from America. Additionally, Prosecutor Mueller continued, Mr. Caldwell attempted to access the frozen accounts yesterday using forged authorization documents. Swiss authorities arrested him this morning. Relief flooded through me. Marcus was in custody, unable to threaten my family or destroy Henderson Industries. However, she said, her expression growing serious, Mr. Caldwell made concerning statements during his arrest. He claims Henderson Industries is involved in international terrorism, selling military components to hostile foreign governments. My stomach dropped. Even in custody, Marcus was trying to destroy me with false accusations. Is there any evidence supporting his claims? We're investigating, Prosecutor Mueller said carefully. If proven true, you could face extradition to face terrorism charges in multiple countries. Agent Coleman pulled out a tablet. That's why we need to move quickly. Marcus is still trying to manipulate the system from prison. He's offering testimony against Rick in exchange for lenient treatment. I stared out the window at Lake Geneva's pristine waters. Marcus's desperation was making him more dangerous, not less. He was willing to accuse me of terrorism to save himself. What's our next step? I asked. Prosecutor Mueller opened another file. Swiss authorities will transfer the frozen funds to American federal control, pending resolution of the criminal cases. You'll regain access to your money, but Henderson Industries remains under federal investigation. How long will that take? Months, possibly years. The timeline was crushing. Henderson Industries would declare bankruptcy long before federal investigations concluded. 400 employees would lose jobs, while bureaucrats sorted through Marcus's lies. Unless, Prosecutor Mueller said thoughtfully, we can prove Mr. Caldwell's accusations are fabricated attempts to manipulate legal proceedings. How? Agent Coleman smiled grimly. Marcus just gave us recorded statements, claiming Rick was involved in international arms dealing. But FBI surveillance proves Rick was working minimum wage jobs during the entire period Marcus describes. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus had accused me of crimes committed while I was washing dishes and serving coffee. His lies were easily disproven. Swiss prosecutors will recommend immediate asset transfer to American authorities, Prosecutor Mueller announced. Mr. Caldwell will face multiple fraud charges in both countries. My phone buzzed with an urgent message from Special Agent Webb. Henderson Industries board meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Marcus arranged for company dissolution before his arrest. You need to get back immediately. The fight wasn't over. Even from a Swiss prison cell, Marcus was still trying to destroy my inheritance. The flight back to Denver felt like traveling between two different worlds. I'd left as a struggling artist with maxed-out credit cards and returned as the legitimate owner of a $30 million aerospace company facing potential bankruptcy. Henderson Industries headquarters was nothing like I'd imagined from childhood memories of Grandpa Walter's workshop. The modern complex sprawled across several acres of Colorado's Jefferson County, with glass-fronted administrative buildings and massive manufacturing facilities that hummed with activity. I walked through the main entrance for the first time as the rightful owner, accompanied by FBI agents and federal attorneys. Employees stared curiously at the young man whose identity had been stolen for years. Mr. Henderson. A woman approached hesitantly. She appeared to be in her 40s, with calloused hands that suggested extensive manufacturing experience. I'm Amy Rodriguez, plant supervisor. We've been hoping to meet you for a long time. You have. Amy's expression was cautious, but hopeful. Many of us suspected something was wrong. Marcus Caldwell seemed to know very little about actual manufacturing processes. We kept asking when the real owner would visit. Other employees gathered around us. These people had been building my grandfather's vision, while I remained oblivious to my inheritance. Their faces showed curiosity, concern, and something that looked like relief. Is it true Marcus has been arrested? Asked Bob Thompson, whose weathered appearance suggested decades of precision tool experience. Yes, he's facing federal fraud charges. A cheer went up from the assembled workers. Whatever Marcus had claimed about employee loyalty, these people clearly hadn't trusted him. "We have an emergency board meeting in 20 minutes, Amy explained. Marcus scheduled it before his arrest. He was planning to dissolve the company and liquidate all assets. The conference room was filled with worried faces. Henderson Industries' management team had gathered to discuss the company's future, unaware that the rightful owner had finally appeared. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced as I entered, "I'm Rick Henderson. Walter Henderson was my grandfather, and this company is my inheritance." The silence was profound. Several board members looked confused, others relieved. A few appeared genuinely shocked. "Marcus Caldwell has been arrested for embezzling millions of dollars from Henderson Industries." I continued. "Federal agents have frozen his Swiss accounts and recovered most of the stolen money." Plant manager Jennifer Walsh raised her hand. "What does this mean for our jobs?" "It means we have work to do," I said firmly. "This company was built by my grandfather and sustained by your efforts. We're not shutting down anything." Over the next several hours, I learned the scope of Henderson Industries' operations. 437 employees across 3 states. Government contracts worth $18 million annually. Manufacturing capabilities that supplied precision instruments to major aerospace companies. Marcus canceled our largest defense contract. Amy explained, showing me termination notices. "We were supposed to deliver guidance system components for next-generation fighter aircraft. Without that income, we'll face bankruptcy within 60 days. Can we restore the contract?" Bob Thompson shook his head. "Marcus damaged our reputation with missed deadlines and quality control problems. The Pentagon doesn't trust Henderson Industries anymore." Marcus's sabotage had been systematic. He'd not only stolen money, but actively undermined the company's relationships with crucial customers. "What would it take to rebuild our reputation?" I asked. Amy and Bob exchanged glances. "Complete cultural transformation," Amy said. "New management philosophy, improved quality systems, transparent communication with customers. Most importantly," Bob added, "genuine leadership from someone who understands our mission." I thought about my grandfather's hands teaching me precision work in his cluttered garage. His passion for creating perfect tools. His belief that good work mattered. "I want to implement profit sharing for all employees," I announced. "If Henderson Industries succeeds, everyone who contributed to that success should benefit." The response was immediate enthusiasm. Marcus had treated employees as expenses to minimize. I wanted to treat them as partners in rebuilding something meaningful. "I also want to establish employee ownership opportunities," I continued. "People who dedicate their careers to this company should have equity stakes in its future." Jennifer Walsh smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. That would change everything. Over the following weeks, Henderson Industries transformed from a fear-based organization to a collaborative enterprise. Employees who'd been hiding problems from Marcus's management began sharing innovative solutions. Quality improved dramatically. Customer relationships strengthened. My artistic background proved surprisingly valuable for engineering challenges. Design problems that had frustrated traditional engineers yielded to creative approaches that combined technical precision with aesthetic innovation. The company's reputation recovered faster than anyone had expected. Boeing offered a new contract for satellite communication components. Lockheed Martin requested proposals for next-generation aircraft systems. The Pentagon agreed to restore our defense contractor status. Jake was released from federal custody after cooperating fully with ongoing investigations. His cooperation had helped prosecutors understand the scope of Marcus's criminal network. During our first conversation after his release, he broke down crying. "Rick, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I never meant for it to go so far. Marcus promised we'd make you rich too." "I know," I said simply. "We all made mistakes." My parents entered family counseling to address the jealousy and resentment that had made Marcus's manipulation possible. The process was painful, but necessary. Trust would take time to rebuild, but we were committed to trying. Grandpa Walter recovered from his heart attack and returned to the company workshop. Seeing his life's work thriving under my leadership restored his health more effectively than any medication. He spent his days teaching younger employees the precision techniques he'd developed over decades. Marcus was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Swiss authorities convicted him on additional fraud charges. The international money laundering network was dismantled with multiple arrests across 4 countries. Justice had been served. But the most meaningful transformation was personal. Amy Rodriguez and I discovered a shared passion for innovation and employee development. Our professional partnership evolved into genuine friendship, then love. She understood my commitment to honoring Grandpa Walter's legacy while building something greater. Henderson Industries now employs over 600 people across 5 states. We've expanded into renewable energy equipment, manufacturing, developing wind turbine components, and solar panel systems. The company Walter Henderson built with his hands has become a leader in sustainable technology. I established the Walter Henderson Foundation to support families affected by financial fraud. We provide legal assistance, financial counseling, and educational resources to people recovering from economic betrayal. Marcus's crimes had taught me the importance of protecting vulnerable families from sophisticated predators. 2 years after that devastating Christmas dinner, I hosted a holiday celebration for Henderson Industries employees and their families. Grandpa Walter sat at the head table surrounded by people whose lives had been touched by his vision. Amy announced our engagement that evening, her diamond ring sparkling in the workshop lights. Grandpa Walter wept with joy, knowing his legacy would continue through another generation. As I looked around the room, filled with employees who'd become family, I realized the true lesson of my journey. Fighting for justice isn't just about reclaiming what was stolen. It's about building something better than what was lost. Marcus had tried to destroy me through betrayal and theft. Instead, his crimes had revealed my true strength, the ability to transform adversity into purpose, anger into action, and betrayal into a deeper understanding of loyalty and trust. Henderson Industries succeeded, not because I inherited it, but because I earned it. Every employee, every innovation, every satisfied customer represented a choice to build rather than destroy. The man who'd almost lost everything had found something more valuable than money, the knowledge that principled action creates lasting value. Have you ever faced a moment when everything you believed about your family or closest relationships was suddenly revealed to be a lie? How did you find the strength to fight back and rebuild? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might inspire someone else facing their own moment of betrayal and decision. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help others find it when they need hope most. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people who refuse to let injustice define their futures. And share this with someone who might need a reminder that fighting back is always possible, even when the odds seem impossible. Thank you for joining me on this journey from betrayal to triumph. Remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond when life tests your character. Until next time, keep building something better than what was broken.